Hello and welcome to day 2, 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tomlins Nyback. I got my name wrong the first time. It's actually a play on words. Anyone who knows me personally knows what my real name is. My real name is actually not important. Tomlins Nyback, that name is important. You can tease that out and play with that, and that'll bring some illumination to what's going on here in my commitment for these next 365 days or so. My first introduction went kind of long, so I'm going to try to keep my comments a lot shorter. Part of that's actually because of data reasons, and I hate spending money. So we'll work on that. Some of my own personal issues I got to navigate. But I want to finish. I had a few more points I wanted to touch on in the introduction. Now we're talking over 400 years worth of oppression, ideologies, theories, approaches, or economics, a lot of things to broach and talk about how they are all connected here in America as far as slavery goes. Now that I understand and read some of Dr. Anderson's work, I realized that black people are not as far from slavery as they think, as we would like to believe. We still go out and do a lot of hard work, bear a lot of this America's society's burdens, and then deliver our resources up to a white power structure. It's not that much different from the 1700s before emancipation. That's what the slave did. The slave went out, labored, loaded wagons, gleaned fields, sowed fields, and all the profits and everything went to the white power structure, and the slave got enough to survive. Right. No health care generally, or pension plans, or retirement. Work to death in this system. Things have gotten a little slacker, and we've had our movements through the 60s, especially, and we don't get overtly oppressed racially, but a lot of those stigmas, a lot of the system, a lot of the power structures still bears sway and oppresses black individuals in America. So I wanted to finish the second part of my introduction. I finished apparently on my catharsis, some release. Because, as I went on in America as an American, I felt some pressure. I felt obstacles, invisible. I want to move places. I want to go places. I'm in a predominantly white city, and it's actually might be one of the most affluent cities right now in America. A lot of people coming in. We're having a population explosion. We're having an economic explosion. A lot of things are happening in the city. And so when I'm riding the train, we just came through our holidays, and I'm seeing this train filled with white folks that are coming from the airport, that have had their vacation time. And you'd be hard pressed to find a a lot of black individuals that move about the country so freely and under uh, so much affluence, to have those resources available to um, just go on a whim and move about the country. And, I don't scratch my head anymore. I've been enlightened about why that is. Uh, but it's interesting to see, this unashamed execution of resources and finances. Uh, it's astonishing. I used to drive for a rideshare company. There's two big ones, but I'm not promoting either one. But I took a lady, I think, to the airport one day, and she's like, she's going to the airport. So I'm like, are you? Well, she didn't have any luggage. Excuse me. She just had, a pocketbook and a coat. And I'm like, you picking somebody up or what's going on? And she's like, no, I just, she flew in from some city, visited, spent the day in my town and flew back to her place. I'm like, wow, man, you can use a plane like a taxi cab. That's amazing. I mean, more power to you if you got it like that. And yes, she was white and all that. But you don't find a whole lot of black people doing that. So um, it's just those kind of things that have bugged me for a long time. And now that I'm understanding the structure of America and how things happen, how things are done, I'm starting to feel better. Oh, and I have no animosity actually towards white people. My challenge here is the structure, is the system. I used to talk to people, the system is doing this and that, and I'd get a blank stare about what I was trying to communicate. It's like, no, I was speaking another language. But now it's been verified, and I know I'm on the right track. So I'm getting some catharsis. Um, I'd like, we're going to talk about proper historical education. Our children need to fill in the historical gaps in the history of the United States and the world, because we're going to get into how this began, some of the roots of this extremely powerful system that began with Europe and slavery and all that. But it's an interesting dynamic that started this whole thing going. And, my education is we have all these great bright spots of the Wright brothers, Thomas Edison, right? All these snapshots every 50, 75, 100 years. Wars come, but we have no, we don't get the context, historical context of what makes that possible. To have a war, to have a Thomas Edison, to have a Wright brothers, to go out west and to get land. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the West and how black people, first off, were excluded from owning land, were excluded from ownership and rights and resources in this nation. Right? You had the white power structure sucking up and accumulating all of these resources. The idea that the white power had was that if they saw an unused resource, they believed they were entitled to it. They had every right to extract it, push whoever was there off, and get it, claim that land, and get those resources, claim those resources because they were unused. I'll be able to articulate that a little bit better. So, if you talk about the gold rush, land rights and grabs, blacks were excluded explicitly from participating in that system in any way, shape, or form. They were lynched, murdered, harassed, threatened, but they didn't get any of it. Do you have a relative that was a recipient of any gold rush? Oh, we supported the Revolutionary War by being a workforce that made it possible for people to go to war. You wouldn't have a Revolutionary War without resources coming in. The history books make it look like we made deals, arms and things, deals with countries and the allies and things like that. But where's the resources come from to make a deal like that? It comes on the labor of black backs. Well, I got maybe in my next segment or so, but we're going to talk about how other countries, other nationalities, other peoples are enjoying so much fruit of America and dumping their goods into America and all that. And though these are nations that, in my personal experience, despise blackness, hate blackness. And some of these people look at me, and let's forget any anger or angst. I'm giving you facts and my personal experience. When I'm looked at by a Chinese, when I'm looked at by an Asian person, it's as though I'm dirty to them. It's like I'm filthy. And they got no problem of holding that gaze upon me. All right, we're going to talk about that maybe in the next session or so. Oh, we'll talk about the South. Let's take a quick commercial break here. Talk about some of the material that informs my discussions here. First is behind me. You'll see hashtag #US2. There you can interact on Facebook with a movement and people having this conversation. Hashtag #US2. You plug it in. It turns into a link. Click the link and it takes you to the appropriate place to hear more and see who's talking about these issues. I'm referencing a lot of the work by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. YouTube his stuff. I can't get enough, and he's rung a bell in my life, and you can't unring a bell. And I just love what he says. And there's a lot of relief to me. So, first book of his I read is a book called A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask, which is true. He's talking about things that maybe were hinted at in my upbringing and education, but things we didn't know about the Supreme Court and some things that are locked in this land in the Constitution, ideas frozen in there that keeps Black Americans in their place, so to speak. Black Labor, Right Wealth, he further teases out some of the economic implications and solutions for Black Americans to come out of this position. Powernomics, I encourage you to go to powernomics.com. Get more information on that. This is more of a specific blueprint. I've not finished reading this yet. Also, you go to the Heritage Institute. It's his spot. I believe it's down in D.C. And a book of fiction, but a book I believe really is underrated in America for specific reasons. Uncle Tom's Cabin. Very important. I'm about halfway through this. It's fiction, but I bet you it's very close to um, the black and white situation in America. In America, it should be a textbook, should be mandatory reading for at least every black person in America. On that note, there was a time where if you were found in the South with these books, this material, you are very likely to be under some serious oppression. This was Uncle Tom's Cabin was banned literature for a time in the South. You don't want to be caught with books that brought light to slavery, that educated people about slavery, which is ironic because the South practiced slavery without shame. I don't understand why they would have any angst or trepidation about material. That's the insidiousness of this white power that we'll be talking about. Do blacks talk around the dinner table? I think I hinted on this a little bit in the first introduction. I don't have to reiterate it too much, but I'm sure other people do. Non-blacks do. If you go out in the public, there's a knowing in the non-black community, but blacks don't do that. I don't think we should do it in a negative sense, but we do need to be educating one another about white power and black vulnerability in America. At least do that. At least understand white entitlement. Understand how Hispanics knowingly overcame blacks in America in population and in economics. How Asians, Dr. Anderson, he says the Asians are under probation to be white. What an interesting phrase we need to tease out, right? So we're going to talk about a lot of that. We'll talk about lynching. I'm going to be jumping around historically too. So this is not a linear historical thing. We're going to go all over the place with this. So don't be alarmed if the context seems disjointed. There's a lot of material, and I'm not caring about a linear point by point thing. It's too late for that. We need to get down to some serious issues. So lynching is actually a guy's name, Lynch. But there's a period of history, over 2,000 blacks were lynched. There's a song called Strange Fruit, written for the four men found hung. When I say found hung, like this is a sick, twisted activity that went on in the South. When I see little girls with their panties hanging down at their ankles, 2 and 3 stories up in a tree hung, it's like, wow, what did a little black girl do? We don't have any record of any prosecutions, which means there are gangs of whites who've not been punished for these murders in the South. We'll talk about the DREAM Act. That was not a DREAM Act for black people. I didn't agree with the DREAM Act, still don't, because this country has not done anything as far as reparations for black people, and it needs to. We'll talk a little bit about Dr. Boyce Watkins. He says the United States could be in arrears of payments to African or black Americans in the tune of trillions of dollars lost. hear about something called the Freedmen's Bureau, the Freedmen's Bank, which is a interesting thing where the blacks trusted the white establishment to take their money, invest it, and do it properly, but they raided it and mismanaged it and did all that stuff similar to Social Security, similar to the world collapse, world financial collapse that came at us 2008, right when Obama was taking office. And in those situations, people or not enough people get punished. But I get looked at hard when I'm just shopping for socks. So that's America. Let's get real. Oh, we had a Black Holocaust. I think I talked about that. More blacks died in our Holocaust than the Jews. We'll talk about some numbers in a moment. Oh, we'll talk about blacks and polygamy, single parent homes, and probably be my personal rant. I'm glad that there are black Americans that do well and stuff, but I would argue, I would wish that the idea is that black homes would stay intact and singular because the proliferation of homosexuality, there is enough men and women to go either way. Just stay committed and don't be jumping in and out of relationships. Um, we'll talk about this will be like maybe for black men, but when we're slighted, when our rights or our feelings are violated, we could use the same language that rape victims use about being violated, um, about being afraid, being paranoid because of the behavior of a community. But we're not heard. I don't need a shoulder to cry on. I need to be taken seriously. I need to be heard, just as a white rape victim would. Very real. We'll talk about that. That'll be my personal offering. For my white friends, I don't hate white people. I've slowly introduced this to my intentions to my white friends, and they quickly talk about women's issues and homelessness and all that. That's not going to fly from where I'm coming from. I'm talking about getting black people what they're owed, get their recognition, all these things. Women, Hispanics, gays, homeless, they all come in as if you listen to Dr. Anderson, and they extract the power and the resources that blacks need to move forward and get what they need, right? And those issues are so friendly to the white establishment. It's incredible. So no, I'm not helping women. I'm not talking about homelessness. Let's talk about the original intent. Let's talk about why even women, homeless, and all these groups use language and try to come on and try to get some benefits and resources. It's because black people were attacked by dogs, held in slavery, marched, you know. Yes, a few gays, and there was, you can find martyrs from any group, but this is about black people. Oh, so that's I'm going to leave it right there. I want to talk about some family members as well. When we talk about bearing the brunt. I'll end with this little introduction of two family members, both named Charlies. They were both my uncles. I didn't know them very well, but they're both named Charlie. I'll tell you about the one first. First Uncle Charlie, these are both on my mother's side. First Uncle Charlie was a peach farmer. Now, I don't think he owned the farm. He just worked a long time farming peaches. And he worked so long, and this is before OSHA and workplace awareness and safety and things like that. So he worked on a tractor in these orchards. And this is a long time ago, so these machines are very loud and stuff like that. If you look at the modern people and modern machines, they're enclosed in essentially soundproof casings, or they're wearing a big earphones and things like that. But that's not where this Uncle Charlie came from. You get on a loud tractor, you blow your brains out with the noise of the tractor, and you get hearing loss. So we have an Uncle Charlie who lost his hearing through riding on this tractor for so long. So this was okay in the house whenever Uncle Charlie was around, and he'd bring peaches bigger than my fist, huge, monstrous things. It was okay to yell then when he was there because his hearing was shot. But that's how long and hard a black man had to work. Or has it happened to whites and Hispanics and anybody else who's done field and farm work? Yes, of course. But I would say it probably happened mostly to blacks. Second Uncle Charlie is another, I consider him a great man. I didn't know him well at all. I only met him once, actually. But he had been working in the fields so long, and most of the field work he did, this is in manual labor, was with fruits and vegetables that were more ground-based, like cucumbers or onions, things like that. Anything you think grows close to the ground. He did it for so long that he had a permanent crook in his back. And I mean, he was hunched over. It wasn't like, oh, a mild stoop or like a noticeable stoop in his back. I mean, he was hunched over like this. This is Uncle Charlie walking straight, right? That's how much vegetables and picking him to earn his living and all that, right? That's the best he could do from all his work and his living, earning his living. Yeah. I've never seen any white or Hispanic or Asian man that worked that long and hard, to get his sustenance. So thanks for day 2. And I'm going to finish the introduction. Let's see if we can get into some meat to see if I can articulate some of Dr. Anderson's work here. And do your best to become and stay aware. That'll be the beginning. That we just get us aware of where our power and our resources are going and how they're not coming back to us. That I would feel I've done my work in these 365 days. Thank you. Goodbye.